I wanted to share with you, myself, Jeffrey. I wanted to share a story with you about when I was 17 years old and repeated, black Ham descended West Africans, though American, though of the USA, had come in and consistently started to attack my father and I when we would play basketball. And what happened at this final juncture was a different individual started to attack who I am. My father stepped up to, stop the attack of his son. And what happened is, as I went to go fight the guy with the black guy, with my father, because the previous day or something of the sort, a different black guy had attacked me, and they had sent like a black woman to start like a bunch of fights in what would happen and make this the cause. But the second black guy from the previous day, the second black human from the previous day, still to this day, I think he's like a metro bus driver. Still to this day stalks me and does evil toward me, and I don't know what to do because the police are only in favor of black humans and Englishmen essentially in the USA. Even like humans who are called like Mexican, like Amerindians, even like thug humans, gangster humans get treated better than who I am and bigger than who I am, when never the case. I have a Bachelor of Arts from UCLA, and I've been a Juris Doctor student at institutions like Harvard Law School and Columbia Law School, and also USC Gould School of Law. So this story, as I go to help fight, just a fist fight, whatever. I go to help fight, and this like Englishman, which I didn't realize, and I'm 17 years old, I'm underage. This like 20-something Englishman who's like an employee there, and I was like 190 pounds, my body weight. So I guess that's like around 89 kilograms, I assume. I don't remember kilograms this well off the top of my head. But so in addition to being surrounded by many black and white humans, black and Englishman type humans, those type of white, non-Middle Eastern. So the Englishman grabs me hard from behind and drags me out to the front, and has this like Middle Eastern, likely slave female at this point, viewing me. And if I would have tried to fight him or go around him, I would have at the least not been able to witness my father being attacked. And what I saw, like with my eyes, I witnessed with my eyes, and I'm not bearing false witness. The Ten Commandments says, "Thou shalt not bear false witness," if I remember correctly. The black guys in the gym, because at basketball courts, which is where we were, disproportionately there's black guys. There was like I think a Mexican American, and I assume like Englishman type genome. So because the Englishman standing in front of me after he had dragged me out, they would grab my father's hands and then let the black guy punch my father in the face, and all my father could do was kick. Because they would just like one after another, they would grab his wrist and pull his wrist back. And my father was in his like 50s. He wasn't like a young guy. He wasn't working out. He wasn't playing basketball. He wasn't like doing anything really. And he's like around 200 pounds. So they I saw at least like a guy who now is like a sheriff or a police officer grab my father's hands, like a black guy, a brown skinned black guy, grab my father's wrist and just pull it really hard. And then the guy would hit my father. So it was like 10 different guys or something pulling my father's hands and wrist and body and letting the black guy hit my father. So this reminds me of my favorite play, Julius Caesar. So like Englishman and, black descended Ham genome, you will burn and your father will burn, okay, in hell. So my favorite William Shakespeare play at the moment, though this is likely to change, is Julius Caesar. And this is essentially the story of a story by an Englishman, a millennia and a half after, showing how Julius Caesar had been very successful in taking over Gaul in a very evil way. Of course, like I've heard on YouTube he had caused, or he leads the genocide of 1/3 of Gaul, which is like France, Gallia, and 1/3 were enslaved and 1/3 were allowed to live. But when he returns, he essentially is getting warned that he will be possibly killed, assassinated, murdered, Julius Caesar, and he returns anyways. And apparently he rejects to become a king because he was like really, really popular. So I guess in the play at least. And Mark Antony, who was a different senator, though I don't believe consul at the time, but like he becomes a member of the second triumvirate. It's like a bit of a story, but apparently true, very true story. But Caesar, in actually on the grounds of the Roman Senate, is stabbed to death by several senators. And we have Jesus Christ now, we have Muhammad, we have Ali. And we have individuals such as myself who continue to testify and continue to complain, like what a war is, a complaint. So what's happening is we have evil individuals still continuing to attack the Middle Eastern when there's a genocide. They're attacking, for example, the Shia non-ending. They've holocausted the Jews, which are two of the less populous groups, and the Sunni, for example, the Saudi Arabians and the Pakistani, are not being attacked, or never being attacked, essentially. So we have cowards and evil humans, and now we have to look to history and see what the differences are. But I wanted to read to you, no, I will never have read Friends, Romans, Countrymen, but I wanted to read to you my favorite, I guess, like monologue from Julius Caesar, and to say what my favorite words are, which William Shakespeare wrote. And I haven't ever seen Julius Caesar perform live in theater, but I have seen some of Marlon Brando's acting, which I really enjoy, of Mark Antony in Julius Caesar in the film. He portrayed Mark Antony, and I've seen a couple of different versions in addition with different actors, but though on YouTube, never the full movie. But let me read from the book I have, which I purchased on the Thames River for I don't know how much. I assume less than like $5, but obviously British pounds. But okay, so I'm not trying to perform. It's just my reading aloud. Running out of breath. Oh, pardon me, thou bleeding piece of earth, that I am meek and gentle with these butchers. Thou art the ruins of the noblest man that ever lived in the tide of times. Woe to the hand that shed this costly blood. Over thy wounds now do I prophesy, which like dumb mouths do ope their ruby lips to beg the voice and utterance of my tongue. A curse, this is my favorite portion of this, this writing. A curse shall light upon the limbs of men. Domestic fury and fierce civil strife shall cumber all the parts of Italy. Blood and destruction shall be so in use, and dreadful objects so familiar, that mothers shall but smile when they behold their infants quartered with the hands of war. All pity choked with custom of fell deeds. This is like my favorite portion, so which I just said. And then the rest is, and Caesar's spirit ranging for revenge, with 8 by his side, come hot from hell, shall in these confines with a monarch's voice cry havoc, and let slip the dogs of war, that this foul deed shall smell above the earth with carrion men groaning for burial. Okay, so this scene is when Mark Antony, who was a loyal human to Julius Caesar, when he finds Julius Caesar, his dead body, which had been stabbed many times, which I should mention, my uncle, my father's brother in the Middle East, he was also found stabbed to death many times, and rolled in a carpet until his body smelled, and he was found later by different humans in the apartment. building. So yes, lots of violence toward us. Though the truth is, now it is time, after the Armenian genocide, the Holocaust, and just non-ending violence towards the Middle Eastern. Now is the time we stop thinking about killing. We stop doing these sort of things and actually end the continuance of evil, okay, in genome and bodily form. So for instance, in ham genome, in Englishman genome, so like a terrorist attack or like a killing or a stabbing or whatever is never worth what the reality is. But you know, if exodus is no going to be allowed, and if you will not allow a peacemaker or peace to be had, let's just go with extinction for you, okay? And this is my character, Jeffrey. So anyways, what do I really like about the specific portion the specific portion is like how much enlarged I have gotten is like the exact amount is what they're trying to symbolize with their fingers. Anyways, because of like bodybuilding. Okay, so what do I like the most? Let me reread my favorite portion. Okay, let me see, just to make sure, because it's on 2 different pages. Okay, let's see. A curse shall light upon the limbs of men. What do I love about this portion? If you've ever been in a like fist fight type of conflict, and you aren't like too experienced and you have any type of being afraid, sometimes your limbs, like your arms and your like legs, it wasn't in my legs, I don't think, usually, but usually your like limbs, either the arms or whatever, you feel there's nothing in them. So it's like, they feel really light, it is true. So possibly William Shakespeare had, as an Englishman, of course, some understanding of what a pugilist is, or pugilism, or punching, or use of the limbs in this sort of way. So a curse shall light upon the limbs of men. So it seems like, okay, he's trying to say a curse shall light upon the limbs of men where they use weapons to like homicide each other, or to like murder each other. But we're talking about also, in a different sense of the word, the limbs get light, the limbs get weak, the limbs do not feel strong. Domestic fury and fierce civil strife shall cumber all the parts of Italy. Okay, so we're talking about like a civil war, and I continue to explain, we as, for example, Shia Muslims, XY and XX, adult and child, are now being held as slave for, about 6 years or so. So we have reference to, let's say, Middle Eastern cucumbers shall cumber all the parts of Italy, but USA is named in part after Amerigo Vespucci of Italy, and in USA there was a civil war to end slavery, to abolish slavery, which has now reappeared. Blood and destruction shall be so in use. So blood, likely King Saul was not a suicide victim. Likely, I would guess. We can pull the difference now using video. We don't have to always have a witness. And it's not bearing false witness. I was never a living organism when this occurred. I'm an individual human. Okay, so likely King Saul was encircled and punched and beaten to death by Ham genome, the Philistines. Seems very obvious because he dared to be a king of the Jews or a king of Israel. And after the Jews had Moses already and they had the Torah, for instance, so he was likely beaten to death. Like his blood was coming out and his faceplate was likely destroyed. Possibly he was possibly like lynched essentially by Ham genome, which, Englishmen and Ham genome, and now increasingly Amerindians and disproportionately Africans try to cover this reality and try to do like a conspiracy where no, the black man of West Africa was actually a slave and this and that. They were working together. Like black humans sold black humans to the Englishman. It was obviously a plan to work together. And now black humans are reaping the reward of having been a slave to discredit the Middle Eastern and it's like the Holocaust is like on a level with slavery. Getting whipped in the back or getting a limb cut off and like living, or getting beaten and still living is different than like, I'm not aware of the number exactly, but like 200 individuals of the Jews just being placed in a room and gassed to death, and there are no living, all won't live. This is very different than having chains and you have to like pick cotton. Oh, it's so hard to pick cotton, compared to like just in a room, you are dead, you are extinct. There you are, in many cases extinct. Very much higher evil was the Holocaust, very low evil. Like, I'm held as a slave. Look at how like well I live, and I'm held as a slave in warfare, like as a Shia Muslim slave, adult male human. Okay, so blood pouring out, like what was the intention when I was shot at? But it's different. Okay, the limbs giving out is usually like when it's like fight or feeling light or weak. And possibly sometimes you want to urinate yourself or release feces if you haven't gotten ready, if you aren't experienced, if you actually don't know what you're doing. But when you get shot at with like a weapon, it's like your heart, because like I've been shot at by guns when I was unarmed. Your heart continues to beat, but your heart you feel differently and your body becomes really slow. It's different than becoming very light. It's like becoming slow. And it took me a while to like pace off and try to get to the house and say, I'm gonna get a knife and whatever. But anyways, so, you know, New Testament, Old Testament, testifying, bearing witness. Now, and dreadful objects so familiar. Okay, so the issue of weapons being pulled, non-ending. So familiar, humans, male, female, adult, child, seeing weapons repeatedly, so familiar, even within the family being shared and discussed. That mothers, this is what I enjoy the most, this is my favorite line possibly, or two lines, that mothers shall but smile when they behold their infants quartered with the hands of war. I always think of like this story of when my mother had explained when I was a child, there was like a child like bothering me when I was like close to being an infant or like a toddler, and she kept encouraging me to beat the child, you know, like beat him, you know? And there was like a witness, like a child of a higher age, but of a, you know, sort of like relative genome to her national background, my mother's national background. And he was laughing and saying, you know, like, auntie, why are you doing this? Why are you saying this? But it's like they get so furious with the evil that mothers, like women, wife, are just like please, even the infants stand up. Any of the males stand up and begin to do with dreadful objects, essentially warfare, at age of infancy. So different than evil, like planning premeditated murder. No. This is what Englishman, and this is what, you know, black humans of like West Africa especially, and like the Amerindians, and, you know, those sort are doing. So essentially, I'll leave it at three different groups, but the premeditated murder is like what they are compared to us, where we need infants. We send child warriors. They make movies about like, yeah, Beast of No Nation. No. My uncle was a child warrior in real life. Okay, so they send children, for instance, to die on mines, to clear the mines. Okay, so this is what we're saying. So that mothers shall but smile when they behold their infants quartered with the hands of war, because they have so much rage. You're gonna say, well, no, it's a sin. It's a deadly sin. It's wrath. The woman is not wrathful, sinful. She's hurt. She's in a rage. She wants vengeance. She wants humans avenged. Okay, like Caesar being stabbed to death by several senators. Okay, all pity choked with custom of fell deeds. Okay, so this is the end of what I really enjoy. So, all pity choked. So like imagine any human who has pity is like choked in their sleep, strangled. And I think of the movie Gladiator. I'm going to be discussing Gladiators, I guess in the next video. But all pity choked with custom of fell deeds. like across borders, across limits. Limits are transgressed. Though we're talking like earlier than if this weren't written. So this is written after the Quran in Islam, but we're talking about Julius Caesar earlier than the Quran. Not earlier than Islam, never earlier than Islam, though earlier than the Quran being allowed to Muhammad, the prophet and messenger. May peace be upon him. So it's like all pity choked. So humans don't have pity. Like for instance, none of the women will give you any type of assistance as a male in any type of morality, in any type of educationally, any type of assistance, because pity is choked with custom of fell deeds. Okay? So you will burn and your father will burn if you continue to be evil. And you understand what this means. This means extinction. The meaning is extinction. But because father is different than mother, father usually means like extinction or remaining a living organism alive, and mother usually means enjoyment or like actually having a good time, basically. So basically, we're talking about pity being choked, and these physical differences happening in the body because of warfare. And so let me put this book down, which I have. So, what is the point? Okay, if we look to the New Testament and we see when Jesus Christ is asked about Moses and divorce, and Jesus Christ says men's hearts were hard, essentially, when Moses was alive, when he was a living organism, and this is why he allowed divorce. But now there's a difference. Okay, so there is to be no divorce. And I'm sure his meaning was also no annulment, no divorce, and no return. So like, for instance, once you go black, you never go back. This shall be instituted, okay? So what we're saying, because remember, I've called Sarah Safari, Schutzstaffel, Sean Strickland a weak white. This doesn't mean a winner white, as opposed to a strong white. The Middle Eastern have the stronger generally than like the left side of the map on in Europe, for instance. Like there are strong men, of course, in Europe also, but like for example in like the Summer Olympics weightlifting, even through immense genocide, we still have individuals of the Middle East who have like a world record easily, without too much stress. We have humans of the Middle East outrunning Shem genome. I'm not talking about Ham genome being mixed in or like disproportionately Japheth, but we have them running faster than like any Amerindian has like as fast as the fastest Middle Eastern or like Asian. There's no Amerindian who has a faster 100 meters time than a Chinese human named Su Bingtian. Okay, there just isn't. So, and I believe this is true also of any European descended human. So Asians are at the moment, they have an individual who is at the 100 meters. If it's continent to continent, it is essentially, there's an issue with like gout and everything, but Asians are second after African descended humans. So at the moment, as a fact. And it's Eurasians who disproportionately are the strongest humans on Earth. And this is a physical fact, factually true statement. So anyways, and we know Goliath was a Ham genome individual. We know the pharaohs of Egypt were Ham genome individuals. And now we have this atrocity happening where Englishman and black-skinned humans of West African descent, though like in North America and South America, are causing holocausts and Armenian genocides and whatever there could be after, like the genocide of the Shia, for instance. So yeah, this isn't new though. So this isn't like the first instance this has happened. New is a different word. But you've seen, I have the book, Julius Caesar, the play, the book of the play on my table by William Shakespeare, and we can see those same situations happening at the moment. And basically, the reality is actually the earth shall become very bitter to humans, and humans shall be very bitter towards humans until you understand, for example, if you have seen the higher and the stronger of any human ever, like all won't have been the higher or the stronger, you could possibly have seen this human on camera in a video. This could happen. Well, it's like, no, well, like Muhammad is like the last prophet. Who said anything about prophet? Okay, I did earlier say prophet though. Yes, okay. So just remember, there's a reason to get your ducks in a row, I would say. And then there's a reason to try to force the situation somewhat differently in terms of acceleration and what you achieve. Because there are those of us who will follow the 10 Commandments, let's say, thou shalt not kill, though in the same instance aren't opposed to extincting who you are. Thank you.